This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We discuss everything there is to know in the world of sports. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Alex. What's up, man?
And we are back here on a Tuesday on the release of Madden NFL 17. I know you're excited. Have you picked it up yet?
I got it last night.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what have you played so far? I know you can't just pick it up and then go to sleep.
I played my brother head-to-head. I played him that. I played some Connected Careers. I played a couple head-to-heads to see some of the new stadiums. They have the Falcons' new stadium that's not out. It comes next year, I think. They have the Mexico City Stadium.
Oh,
really
wow.
Cool.
I didn't know they...
Really cool stadium.
Is there like Wembley Stadium for England too, or no?
They had that last year. I don't know if they have that this year.
I didn't know they added all those. Okay.
Yeah,
it's
they
pretty
had the
interesting.
Vikings' new one last
right,
year.
Right, the outdoor...
No, their new dome one. I'm saying they had the Minnesota University, but then they had the one that is opening next year.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't know they added all those.
It's a fun game.
Pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm about a month away from FIFA 17, so September 27th. And, I will be probably just as excited as you are about Madden, because I'm not really a Madden guy anymore. I used to play it a lot, but...
It's a shame to hear, Ben.
I'm sorry.
I was standing there, waiting for them to start giving you the game and stuff, and, this guy was like, yeah, I can't wait for FIFA, and I was like, you think you're a FIFA fan? You should meet Ben.
So I have kind of a funny story to tell you now about Madden, because I remember it was either 2 or 3 years ago, I camped out to get a Madden launch, midnight launch.
I'll never camp out. I'd rather go to sleep.
Not necessarily camp out, but what I mean is like, I got there like 11:30.
Yeah, they released it at 9.
Right, but this was before they did that. So this was at like a midnight launch.
Yeah,
I got there like 11:30.
I got 2013 at midnight.
And so like as I'm picking up my game, these two guys behind me just started fighting in the video game store.
Awesome.
And I was like, I didn't know what was going on, and then like they have all these displays of boxes of consoles and stuff, and they go crashing into them, and like boxes are flying everywhere. And this is as I'm getting my game, so I'm just like, oh, see ya. And I just like literally like walked right out the door right in front of them. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what are they arguing over NFL teams or something? Like, I don't know what happened, but they just started fighting in the store.
It's pretty weird.
And I was like, well, see ya. Like, I'll be on my way. But I just sort of got that popped into my head when we were talking about Madden, and you got it last night, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, Ben.
That's good.
It is good.
I know they've added a lot of features that get people excited. So
well, see, that's for the next gen consoles. That's PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I don't get as many of those. I get the new announcers.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's cool.
It's good.
Charles Davis. You know Charles Davis?
Yes, of course I know Charles Davis.
He's the color analyst.
Well, he wouldn't be the lead one. So
you don't know what he can do. He's capable.
Maybe in Madden, but in his real profession, he's not doing that.
Yeah, in his real profession, he's a color guy.
Exactly.
He's a color analyst. But, yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it so far.
That's good. And speaking of colors, we have bronze, silver, and gold.
Yeah, I like those
with the
games
Olympic
too.
medals.
Yeah.
And the Rio 26 Olympics, which concluded on Sunday.
Yeah, it did.
So we are going to be doing our Olympic recap here in the first segment. Second segment after our first break, we're going to be talking about UFC 202 in Las Vegas over the weekend on Saturday, headlined by Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz 2. We also had some other good matches. Anthony Rumble Johnson against Clover Teixeira ended quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then to finish out the show today, we're going to be recapping Week 2 of the National Football League preseason, some games and some standout performers. Really, really big standout performer in Dallas, a guy who played quite well in Week 1 as well.
Yeah, it was nice to see, and we're going to get into it. But first, we'll start with the 2016 Summer Olympics that did conclude on Sunday to give you a recap of the medal count, the United States ended with 46 gold, 37 silver, and 38 bronze for a total of 121 medals. The next closest nation was China with 70, and Great Britain with 67. The closest in terms of medal to medal between nations was probably bronze, the United States with 38 and China with 26, so a difference of 12 there. Everything else was pretty significant.
Did you know that there was prop bets on Olympic medal counts?
Really?
Like there was an over/under on like United States Olympic medals. Like you could bet that.
Yeah,
I didn't even know they could do that because I know they have a lot of prop bets on things like the Super Bowl, but I didn't know you could do that with the Olympics.
Yeah, you can do that with the Olympics.
Yeah, so I think the over/under was 100 on total medals, and obviously at 121 they topped that. So if you did make that bet, you would have obviously made some money on that. Mm-hmm. So Great Britain came in second in total golds with 27. Obviously, China third with 26. And then you have Russia in fourth with 19 golds.
Yeah.
So the Olympics really dominated by the Americans. Some standout performers. The men's basketball team ended up beating Serbia on Sunday in the gold medal match. A team that they had only beaten by a few points earlier in the group stage, but handled them quite well in the gold medal game, winning by 20+. Kevin Durant really led them in that final game. So they turned what could have been a nightmare Olympics into a result that we all expected. The United States women as well went on Saturday. They win gold over Spain. They won by 29. Pretty dominant. They have not lost a game since 1992, and they win their 6th straight gold medal. Absolutely dominant, and you've got to expect for years to come, Tokyo 2020, they're going to be dominating. You have a lot of stand-up performers, Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, Simone Biles, Simone Manuel. A lot of great storylines as well.
Yeah. And I meant to mention it as well. So the United States did win 121 medals. It's the most they've ever won in the Olympics, excluding 1984. And that's 174. That is the year that...
174?
That's the year the Soviet Union boycotted the Olympics.
And that... Well, okay, because you could say Russia in this Olympics alone won 56.
Yeah.
So you can throw up not just Russia, but a lot of other nations as well in the USSR. So
yeah, so it was the 84 Olympics that were held in LA. So not only did they win the most ever, obviously of any nation, but they won it on home turf.
So we have a lot of great storylines, as I mentioned, in the Olympics. Like I mentioned, Simone Biles, Simone Manuel, Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky. You have Brazil winning their first ever Olympic gold medal in soccer. They win it in penalty kick fashion. Neymar scores over Germany to win the game, starts crying. You have Puerto Rico win their first ever gold medal in women's tennis. To you, what was the biggest positive storyline of the Olympics? Because we all know what the biggest negative storyline is, and that's Ryan Lochte and the fabricated robbery story. But to you, what was the biggest positive story of the Olympics?
I mean, there's a lot of them.
Or like your biggest memorable moment in your eyes?
Phelps coming back, winning again, becoming just the all-time, single greatest Olympian currently of all time. There's a lot. The women's gymnastics, Simone Biles winning, so young. There's a lot of swimming that was so impressive this time. The United States, I think, had her first ever women's wrestling champion. I think, if anything, it was highlighted by a lot of women's sports, and it showed a lot of people that might still be under the impression that women aren't as good as men. Well, they looked pretty good in these Olympics. I'll tell you that they did a lot of great things. You know what I mean? A lot of good teams, a lot of good athletes. There's a lot of things, whether it was, like I said, Phelps or the two distance runners that fell and hurt themselves, and then that story itself. Basketball on the women's side, they were more dominant than the men by far this year, and that was very impressive to see. And there's just a lot of things, I think, that was really something that you remember from this Olympics. What about you?
I'm going to be a little biased here because I do love soccer. It's my favorite sport. So I'm going to say Brazil winning the Olympic gold medal over Germany.
Whatever.
But, just look at the moment, okay? Think about this. So,
I mean, it was cool for them in their home country.
Exactly. So the game went 1-1, and then they go on to penalty kicks. It was tied 4-4. Then the Brazilian keeper saves Germany's penalty, and then it would be Neymar, the golden boy for Brazil, to score the game-winning penalty to end the game. Like I mentioned, he starts crying immediately. He's swarmed by his teammates. He scored the goal in the game in regulation to make it, a 1-0 lead at the time. He scored a free kick. So I'm going to say that was the biggest moment to me because it was in their home country. Think about what happened 2 years ago in the World Cup, Germany beating them 7-1 to get their, not necessarily on a full-scale redemption because it's two different teams, a lot of different players, but somewhat of a redemption against Germany after that 7-1 defeat in front of their home nation.
No redemption. Completely different teams, different story.
Yeah, but still,
hold on to the glory.
So I'm gonna say Brazil winning Olympic gold, but as a logical standpoint, I'm gonna say Lily King for the United States. What she said about doping and the Russian swimmer Yulia Efimova, and then really backing that up with a gold medal in that backstroke. I'm gonna say Lily King for the United States.
Okay. I can't disagree with you there. It was, like I said, a lot of impressive feats these Olympics for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then think about 2020 in Tokyo. We have obviously 4 years, quite a while to wait, but you're going to have a lot of great stand-up performers as well. I would imagine you'd seen Simone Biles back for the gymnastics. Katie Ledecky at 23, maybe trying to be kind of the female of Michael Phelps. Think about in Beijing in 2008 when he was 23, 8 gold medals. Katie Ledecky trying to sort of become that next great Olympic swimmer and become like the next Michael Phelps in an aspect, going to be the same age. Did you see that Katie Ledecky opted to not turn professional and opted to go to college? She's going to be going to Stanford.
Yeah.
Obviously, great institution. Mm-hmm. But she's going to be going to Stanford instead of turning pro and turning down really millions and like all these endorsements and everything. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, that just shows you kind of who she is. There's things that might be more important to her. A lot of people could have that dream of always wanting to go to college. So, it's just kind of shows you it's an insight on how she might put things in terms of priority in her life. Maybe money's not the greatest thing to her.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of put that in the same aspect. I'd say as long as she stays healthy and doesn't get injured, the money will come after she graduates college and becomes a professional swimmer. That college experience is something you can never really fulfill unless you do it. You can't really go back. Sometimes it's too late. You're only young one time in your life. So obviously that college experience is a little more important. And like I said, as long as she stays healthy, she's going to absolutely dominate the college ranks, win collegiate national championships. And then by the time she graduates around 22, 23, she'll be a professional swimmer for the Tokyo Olympics and make millions then.
Yeah, I mean, and even as a college athlete, I think you can still, it's not the same as football, or I think you can still do endorsements, I think, right?
I really don't think so, because you're on a scholarship, so you can't really accept any outside benefits.
Well, I mean, either way, like I said, it kind of just shows you how she is, and what she places as
priorities.
Priorities, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's going to come. She's really going to be the best swimmer in 4 years, because Michael Phelps will be gone. Missy Franklin had a disappointing Olympics when everyone looked at the 2012 Olympics at 17 that she was going to be great, and she really did not do too well at this Olympics. So
yeah, kind of the forgotten swimmer, I guess. I was looking, remember with I was like, oh yeah, what's that one swimmer from the 2012 Olympics? And I went, I was like, oh, she's not doing too great.
Yeah, she did not have a great Olympics. So
unfortunate, but training is training, and she'll be back just like Ledecky and everybody in 4 more years.
Yeah, the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo going to be great. So they're adding baseball and softball back. They're bringing in skateboarding, surfing, a lot of great sports, kind of like X Games sports in that aspect with surfing and skateboarding that you can really look forward to 4 years from now.
And now you have looking forward to the Winter Olympics.
2 years, yeah.
You're not as much of a Winter Olympic person? Do you like them?
The Winter Olympics are still good. Obviously, it's still great moments. I'd say I'm more of a summer guy. I love the track and field, swimming, basketball, soccer.
Gymnastics.
Right. With the Winter Olympics, I do like the bobsleds. I love the speed skating. I think that's a great event. It's really fast and really exciting, action-packed. So there's definitely still some great Olympics in the winters.
All right. Well, hey, I'm looking forward to it. But, that's a long time from now. But what's not long from now is right after our break, we will discuss UFC 202, McGregor Diaz 2. And we'll get into some more fights on that card as well. But we'll take our first break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, and we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We're going to get into some MMA and UFC 202, obviously headlined by the main fight that is Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, the rematch. Pretty anticipated rematch, I might add, Ben.
Definitely after that first fight, both these guys really, really outspoken, not afraid to speak their minds. We have Diaz coming out on top with a second-round submission, and then we had the rematch on Saturday.
Yeah, and it was quite the fight we'll get into in a moment, but we'll cover the rest of the card real quick. And Anthony Rumble is his nickname, right?
Yes.
Anthony Rumble Johnson defeated Glover Teixeira. We'll get into just how quickly that occurred when we cover that. Donald Cerrone did defeat Rick Story in the second round via TKO. Mike Perry defeated, I'm going to try this one, Hyun Gyu Lim.
There you go.
Not bad, right? In round one, TKO as well. And then to finish the main card, Tim Means defeated Saba Homasi via TKO as well. So, the first three fights, all TKO. Second fight, second to last at least, Glover Teixeira was KO'd. And then the Conor McGregor fight went to decision. What do you want to get into first? Anthony Johnson, Glover Teixeira, or the main
Let's
event?
do the main event first, and then we'll jump into Teixeira and Johnson, because there's not much to
cover for about 12, 13 seconds, you think?
I think that's fair. There's not much to talk about there. But anyway, so McGregor versus Diaz, we have McGregor coming out on top via majority decision, 48-47, 47-47, and 48-47. After watching the fight, I'm not really sure how that one judge obviously put a draw at 47-47. I thought that McGregor, honestly, very easily won the fight. I thought Diaz had good moments. He took him down in that fifth and final round, but it was just really too late. He took him down with only 10 seconds left. Couldn't really do any damage. It seemed like McGregor really dominated the first two rounds. He was really abusing him with that leg kick. McGregor's left leg, his back leg, to Diaz's front leg, his right leg. He abused him all night with those leg kicks. McGregor actually got injured. He broke some bones in his leg from kicking him so much. He's going to be out about 5-6 months, it looks like. But anyway, so McGregor really dominated that fight. It seemed like in the third round, McGregor really, really got tired to me. McGregor, not really known as a guy who goes the distance very often, really, really wins early all the time. First, second round. His conditioning, not really one of his strong suits. That third round, he looked really tired. Diaz seemed to sort of make some sort of a comeback in that third round. But then in the fourth round, it seemed like McGregor really had like a second wind. He got a lot of his conditioning back. The fourth round, he really dominated. The fifth round, he kind of just sort of eased his way through it, sort of righted the storm, made sure he didn't get knocked out, and won the fight. He really bloodied up Diaz pretty well, cut him up pretty bad on his right eye. He really dominated the fight.
Yeah, I think so too. It really was McGregor's fight to lose in that sense, because he really just handled it the entire time. It was very impressive in that sense for sure, to see how he now that he has the time to prepare, it comes to show you kind of what you would expect from the first fight if they had time to prepare for one another as well. And it absolutely lived up to
it was a great fight, yeah. Great fight.
It lived up to the hype of this entire week for sure. It was not even just the entire week, but the entire media around it, throwing bottles at each other and screaming at one another at the press conference, back and forth. It somehow still it lived up to that. Yeah,
I agree. And after the fight, McGregor had said that he's ready for number 3. He wants, that third match against Diaz, but he wants Diaz to come down to his weight because McGregor had said, I came up to your weight. Now it's time for you to come down to my weight, that 155 range. I'm not sure if Diaz can really do that. He's a much taller guy, a lot lengthier of a guy. Coming down in weight, I think for Diaz is going to be much more of a struggle than McGregor going up in weight. So who knows what's going to really happen with that. But I think for now, McGregor should mainly focus on sort of defending his title, that featherweight belt. It looks like it'll be Jose Aldo, a rematch of whom McGregor took the belt from, beating him in the first round with a knockout. So I think that's what's going to be next, and maybe Diaz and McGregor 3 will be down the road.
Mm-hmm. I could see it. I mean, people want to see it.
Yeah, and after the second fight, it would definitely sell well because it was a great fight. It lived up to the hype, as you mentioned. Both guys had good moments. Both guys really outspoken after the fight as well, not afraid to speak their minds. Diaz was talking about how he was coming in with an injury. He felt
story.
Yeah, he talked about how McGregor dominated him and he should have finished him, but he didn't. So, I mean, Diaz not afraid to speak his mind, really outspoken here as well.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, it sounds like excuses to me, but...
Yeah, I don't know, Diaz is pretty much a straight shooter. He's not a guy who likes to make excuses. Maybe he is injured. We have heard that before with a lot of guys. Think about Manny Pacquiao said that after he lost to Floyd Mayweather. So, I mean, who knows? Who really knows? But one of the big storylines that came out really last night is what Nate Diaz was maybe doing after the fight.
Yeah, he
little
had
vape pen
action, and nobody quite knows the contents of said vape pen, and
the
gotten him in some trouble.
USADA is investigating what looks like it may have been a cannabis oil in there, so maybe he'll face a suspension for drugs or something. Who knows? It's still going on. It just broke last night, so.
I mean, hey, if it was cannabis, it'd make sense. Dude's face was all messed up. It's probably in pain.
He got beaten up pretty good by McGregor, so. But to be honest, to give it to Diaz, he took every one of those punches. He did get knocked down a few times in the fight, especially in the earlier rounds.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that might have to do with the damage that McGregor was doing to that front leg. Kind of lost a lot of his stability. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But he did take a fair share of punches. He took a beating.
Well, let's move on to somebody who took not necessarily a fair share of punches, but
the one that got it done.
The one that got it done. And that is the fight between Anthony Johnson and Glover Teixeira. And that ended in 13 seconds.
Anthony Rumble Johnson with a 13-second knockout of Glover Teixeira. He hit him with really one punch. He threw a feint with his left hand, then got him with an absolutely nasty uppercut. Glover Teixeira's tooth came out and went flying.
It was one of those punches that didn't seem that, violent, Like one of the ones that just catches him right and just knocks him out.
He just caught him right on that sweet spot and totally knocked him out. 13 seconds into the round. Anthony Johnson didn't even break a sweat. So, I mean, and then after the fight, what I liked was that he really called out Daniel Cormier, the UFC light heavyweight champion, who was in the stands. A lot of people looked at Rumble Johnson as the guy who's next in line for a title shot. And then after this win over Glover Teixeira, it really solidified that as him being the number one contender. Mm-hmm. So I think what you have next is you're going to have Cormier versus Rumble Johnson for that light heavyweight championship. And you can't say that Anthony Rumble Johnson does not deserve it after what he just did on Saturday.
Yeah, and he went in there and on a big stage and pretty much showed that he's deserving of it. So I think he'll get his shot. It's a tricky situation. You know what I mean?
Well, with the whole John Jones thing, so.
Yeah, they're going to want that fight to happen first, probably, I'd imagine. And apparently that might be news on that front or something coming. But I would say, yeah, I think he deserves it.
And really, in this fight, he didn't really... I mean, obviously he had a fight, but you could say he won in 13 seconds. He didn't even get touched. You could say that he's ready to fight today. Yeah. So who knows, that fight might be earlier than later because
it really depends
he doesn't...
on how the John Jones stuff goes.
Right, and Rumble Johnson doesn't have to have a sort of rehabilitation, moment. He can just sort of step right in and go back to training because he trained for this big fight and it didn't last very long.
Well, apparently, too, it came out today that Dana White wants Johnson to fight John Jones first with a light heavyweight title eliminator fight. To see who then Cormier would fight from there.
I can understand that, but in a way I feel bad for Rumble Johnson. Like, he's supposed to have this fight, and then he goes in against Glover Teixeira. And now you have to go against John Jones.
Well, I mean, Jones is the number one contender.
But what I'm saying is, if Jones has been sort of twiddling around, he hasn't had his fight with Cormier, or his second fight with Cormier, I should say. Why not just give Rumble Johnson that opportunity he's been sort of deserving for?
I think mainly the fact that he's the number one contender,
I guess so. I mean, when I look at Rumble Johnson versus John Bones Jones, I would give Jones the advantage. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Anthony Rumble Johnson proved to you that it only takes one punch to finish a fight from him. So who knows? Yeah. That'd be a good fight. I would love to see
love to see that fight, yeah. All right, well, hey, let's take our last break, and then we're going to get into the recap of the NFL Week 2 preseason action. So we'll be right back, you guys, at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Just pop culture and then totally cuts off.
Yeah, that's
just
the only thing.
There.
Just pop culture.
All right, so anyways, before we move into NFL Preseason Week 2 recap, I just want to sort of look forward to UFC 203. It's going to be Saturday, September 10th from the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. We have the main event being the heavyweight championship bout between Stipe Miocic, the champion, and Alistair Overeem. Yeah. We also have the former UFC heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum against Travis Brown. We have the debut fight of Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, against Mickey Gall.
That's not as good of a name, Phil Brooks. That's not good.
CM Punk, he's going by CM Punk in the UFC. So
good.
And then, as always, we have one of, I know mine, and probably one of your favorite UFC fighters, the California Kid, Uriah Faber, going up against Jimmy Rivera.
Yeah, big fan of Uriah Faber.
Yeah, met him a lot of times. He's a great guy.
You met him?
Yeah, I've met Uriah Faber 3 or 4 times.
That's awesome.
He's a great dude.
Does he remember you ever?
Yeah. I remember he came into my old job once when I was working at a yogurt shop over in Arden Fair at the mall. He came in there and he was like, "Hey, I met you at that event a while back." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he left me a nice little tip. And
he's so tiny.
After he bought his yogurt, yeah, so tiny. Standing at 66 inches tall.
I say before we get moving on, isn't Alistair Overeem? Isn't that just when he was born, his parents were like, "This kid's gonna be a fighter." Like that. I mean,
he looks like it.
And that name, that dude.
Alistair the Reem Overeem.
That somebody could have thought of a better nickname.
He's from the Netherlands.
But yeah, he was made for fighting. All right, well, let's move on. NFL preseason Week 2 action wrapped up on Saturday. There was no Sunday games this week, but it was some decent action, I would say, for sure. I would say Week 1 had a little bit more excitement to it, but Week 2 was just as solid. So we'll recap the scores here. Excuse me, my allergies have been really messing with me. I went to the city this weekend. I was all sneezes.
Sorry, buddy. You feeling better or no?
It's just allergies, you know what I mean?
Just bugging you?
Yeah. All right, so the Pittsburgh Steelers lost one at home, 17-0 against the interstate rival Eagles. The Bengals won one on the road against the Lions, 30-14. The Patriots won a close one at home against the Bears, 23-22. The Browns lost at home against the Falcons, 24-13. But Robert Griffin III did look pretty good. We'll talk about that. The Raiders lost to the Packers in Green Bay, 20-12. Yeah. 18-11, the Vikings take it on the road against the Seahawks. The Jets lose to the Redskins in Washington, 22-18. Revis had a pick, starting to look, midseason form there. Had a couple good plays from some young receivers on the Jets side. Again, if I feel like the need to talk about it, we will talk about it. Bryce Petty, he looked really good. I actually do want to talk about it, but on the Jets passing side, not the receivers. Cowboys, again, looked very impressive, winning their first game in the preseason at home at Jerry World against the Dolphins, 41-14. The Chargers handled the Cardinals, 19-3. The Titans lost one at home to the Panthers, the defending NFC champions, 26-16. The Bills pretty much decimated the interstate rival Giants at home, 20-0. Another close one between the two former and current Baltimore teams, the Ravens and the former Raven, now Colt.
Yeah, I do.
19-18, the Ravens won that one in Indianapolis. The Buccaneers beat the Jaguars, another interstate rivalry there, home game for the Jaguars, 27-21. The Texans, and some first actual solid action from Brock Osweiler, won at home against the Saints, 16-9. And the last two games here, the Niners beat the Broncos, 31-24. We're going to get into that game. And the Rams stay undefeated and start the year in the preseason undefeated, in LA, 21-20, another close game against the visiting Chiefs. Okay, now before I get into some games that stood out to me, were there any games that stood out to you personally?
Really, I mean, the biggest storyline to me was the Cowboys-Dolphins game, and you got to talk about Dak Prescott.
Yes.
4 total touchdowns, two rushing, 2 throwing. He looked really, really good.
Yeah, he currently has more touchdowns for himself. He had 2 last week, 2 this week, and the 2 running. So 6 total to 5 incompletions total.
And a lot of people are going to say it's just preseason. You know, he's playing against people that may not play every game. And I guess you have some truth to that matter. But I guess what I look at more so with Dak Prescott is you really can sort of solidify him as the backup quarterback now. Because if you talk 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, it was what is Dallas going to do as a backup quarterback? They need to get Nick Foles. They need to trade for McCown from Cleveland. They need to do something because Dak Prescott isn't ready. Now you can sort of say, although it be preseason, although it be 2 games, he is definitely their backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. And really maybe that guy for the future when Tony Romo finally decides to hang it up.
Yeah. It was definitely impressive to see, excuse me, not only, from the passing standpoint, not necessarily the rushing standpoint. We knew those things coming in. We knew he had a big arm. We knew he was mobile. It's the pocket mobility for me. As he steps up in the pocket, he moves within the pocket to set himself up for a better passing lane, a better pocket, and it was really impressive to see. That's what's been most impressive for me to see from him is a game, part of the game you didn't know he had, and that was really the ability in the pocket there. It was his feet in the pocket are nice. Anything else from you?
I mean, not really. I'm not, like I said, I'm not much of a preseason guy, so I think just really the big center performer to me was Prescott, and then I guess the other thing that stood out to me was how Mark Sanchez kind of, this is going to be ironic, but kind of fumbled his way around to start against the Niners there. He had 2 fumbles on 1 snap. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that pretty deep.
He's almost starting to perhaps give away his job that I think he should probably get, his starting quarterback job. Mm-hmm. But now there's obviously some thoughts there that he may not. Trevor Siemian, it looks like he's going to start the next preseason game.
Yeah, I want to get into that even deeper before. But I'll just do some things that stood out to me. Jimmy Garoppolo looked real good again. Brady was going to start the game, and then there was, I guess he cut his finger before the game on his throwing hand, and it's a preseason game. It doesn't matter. Just don't play. So they probably took the right choice there. Again, RG3 looked really good. He had a couple of really nice throws. One of his touchdown passes to Gary Barnidge was beautiful. Barnidge was on the sideline being trailed by a linebacker or a corner, and the safety was coming over the top. RG3 put it only where he could get it, right to the front corner of the end zone. Beautiful pass, nice throw, a nice catch. It was really nice. And
this is really
a touchdown pass for 50 yards to Mr. Former quarterback Terrell Pryor.
This is really a big year for RG3 because it's really kind of like a resurrection of his career here in Cleveland with Hugh Jackson trying to turn him around. I think he's got a good chance of being that guy we saw his rookie year with the Redskins. He's got great targets. He's going to have Josh Gordon after he comes back from his suspension. Corey Coleman, the first-round pick out of Baylor. Terrell Pryor's had a great preseason. Everyone's saying he's having a great camp. Have to see how that goes. Gary Barnidge, a good tight end as well.
And he ran the ball and slid.
For once.
RG3 slid.
For once.
It was beautiful.
But again, I think a lot of that goes into Hugh Jackson and his kind of offensive scheme and mindset. I don't think you're going to see RG3 running that much unless it's sort of a...
It was a scramble. It wasn't necessarily a designed run.
Like a scramble or like a play breaking down. You're not going to see him doing any designed runs. That's not really the kind of game plan Hugh Jackson wants to run with Cleveland.
He'll throw it in every once in a while because I do remember Andy Dalton doing it sometimes. But no, I know what you mean. Okay, now I want to get to the game that we were talking about, the 49ers and Broncos. Entering this game, on the football podcast I talked about it as, and Jeremiah stated as, possibly being 2 quarterback battles, one the best situation and one the worst situation, and the Niners and Broncos. And obviously you have 3 capable starters, it seems like, for the Broncos, and who is what capable starter for the Niners. Yes, so Trevor Siemian started this game. I watched this game, and Siemian didn't look bad. He was 10-14-75, and he had one bad pick. He had a pick 6. It wasn't pretty, but he looked good. One thing that Siemian does, excluding the pick, excuse me, that I've noticed, is he doesn't put the ball in danger. It's not that he checks down too quickly. He scans the field and then he'll hit his check down. If he sees the possibility of something bad by pushing the ball down the field, he does, he goes through his reads well. Now, Sanchez, like you said, 10 for 17, 120. He necessarily didn't have a bad day, but he didn't do anything for me, if I was a coach, to say this is my job.
He didn't really stand out.
Yeah, he didn't instill to me any
separate
confidence in saying, there was no separation there. Excuse me. Now, the most impressive starter in that game, or not starter, but quarterback, was Paxton Lynch. He played well the first game, but this game he was 113 yards on 15 completions, 2 touchdowns, an interception that wasn't really an interception in the sense of they were trying to score at the end of the game going downfield, and he just he threw a long pass.
They got picked off.
They got picked off. He threw it high. It is a pick. It's not necessarily like a last chance throw kind of deal. He did get picked off, but who's to say what would have happened if they weren't trying to do something quick,
Right.
But it was, he was impressive to see. And that's another thing with him is, like Dak, he displayed mobility in college and a strong arm, but he has really good feet in the pocket. He's looked really good in terms of stepping up in the pocket and creating more to throw with. So it's going to be interesting, yes. Simeon's starting again, and I think it's his job to lose right now.
Okay,
I think if he doesn't produce, they're going to have to go with Sanchez because what Sanchez can prove. Simeon, there's still not a big enough sample on him.
Right,
Sanchez
he
has been
hasn't.
a starter. You'll know what you get with Sanchez for the most part,
Simeon hasn't thrown an NFL pass in the regular season.
Exactly.
So with Sanchez, he's definitely the most experienced guy. I think I would definitely go with him, but again, he's not really doing anything to separate himself, so is that battle there. You know what I honestly expect to happen? I'd say by about week 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around that range, I would not be surprised if you see Paxton Lynch as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. He's not ready right now. Yeah. It looks like he's going to be that guy next year. But you know what? The Broncos, depending on their record, I think that really is the big determining factor here.
Well, I know that's not what they want.
Right,
they want him to sit for a year. But if say they've exhausted their options between the two men ahead of them, I could see that happening. I think one would switch to the other before Paxton, though. If it was, say, Sanchez, it would go to Simeon, or the vice versa, before it would go to Paxton.
Yeah, but I think that my mindset coming from John Elway and the Broncos is, this guy's our future. We know what we can get out of Sanchez. Simeon isn't really doing enough to separate himself in that aspect as well. Paxton Lynch is our future. We're not doing too well, or we think we're in a good position no matter who is our starting quarterback. Let's give him a shot. I honestly see that happening.
If I'm them, I'd rather sit him for the entire year. Let him really learn it. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, I feel like there's that, age-old problem where they could possibly damage him, harm him in that sense. But moving on to the Niners, again, Kaepernick didn't start. He's going to play next preseason game.
Yeah, he's finally practicing now.
Yeah, Gabbert started. He went 6 for 9, 69 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Again, he didn't instill any confidence in me, if I'm the head coach, that he's going to be able to do much in this offense. Driscoll, 6 for 7, 66 yards, no touchdowns. Again, young kid, you don't expect him to do much. Tell me how the most impressive quarterback on the roster was a guy signed on Monday.
I don't know, but that guy is Christian Ponder. He was 7 of 8 for 86 yards and a touchdown, and he added another touchdown on the ground as well. So
yeah,
two
20-yard touchdown on the ground. He had a pretty nice pass. Again, it was a pass that the problem with Ponder has been his arm strength. He's never flashed elite arm strength, and again, even that pass seemed a little like he could have let him more. But yeah, how does a guy who gets signed the Monday before the Saturday game be the most impressive quarterback on the roster?
I don't know. Maybe
in a Chip Kelly offense.
Maybe because he doesn't know much of the playbook or the scheme, they sort of kept it kind of basic for him.
Yeah, I'm sure they did, and that of what he might have known with different terminology.
Right, and we've seen Ponder in the past in Minnesota. He's not necessarily a guy who is capable of leading a team, in my opinion, not a starting quarterback. But Chip Kelly, the head coach of the Niners, said that he really, really likes Ponder, and he's doing great things since he's come in. So maybe it's kind of crazy to say this, but maybe you add him into that quarterback carousel in San Francisco as well as Kaepernick and Gabbert. Yeah. I really don't think so, but who knows?
I think the biggest thing for them, and we'll talk about it on Thursday, is that Kaepernick's playing next game. And we can really finally see something from him if he's going to be able to handle this offense, because if not, they're in for a long year.
Yeah, he'll play Friday against Green Bay in their third preseason game. Really the most important preseason game as well, that Week 3 game. So, I mean, who knows? I still think that it goes to Gabbert, the starting job, which, I mean, really with this offensive scheme, there's no reason Kaepernick shouldn't be that guy. But if he's just now getting back up to speed, missing training camp, OTAs, his arm's finally coming back, he hasn't had any real practice, hasn't really done much in the last 2 years to solidify that he's the guy that took them to the Super Bowl and took them, one pass away from another Super Bowl, that NFC
In my
Championship
opinion, I think
game.
the defense really took him to that Super Bowl. But
I'm talking about the quarterback that led them. You know what I mean?
that's
He's
what I
still
mean,
that guy. So he hasn't been that guy who's did that. He hasn't been that successful, So I don't know. I still think Gabbert gets the job, which if I'm a Niner fan, I'm not really sort of looking forward to.
Nothing about their offense so far has instilled any confidence in me if I was a Niner fan in that team's capability to score points.
No, not at all. But with Chip Kelly, he has a guy who obviously has a really dynamic offense, a guy who likes to run a lot of plays, put a lot of points up on the board. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for Week 3. Obviously, some notable games. We'll get into that on Thursday. It's going to be a good one. I know, like you said, the Packers are playing the Niners. The Steelers are playing the Saints. I am pretty excited. All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. But as always, you guys can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play at the GSMC Sports Podcast, as well as on Facebook and YouTube at the GSMC Football Podcast. You can find us on iTunes and Twitter at the GSMC_sports handle. And as always, you can find us on our website, gsmcpodcast.com. Would you like to say anything to the fans before we leave, Ben?
I just want to thank them for listening. I feel like we had a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you on the next one.
Yeah, we will see you guys next time.